In 1969, Chevrolet unleashed the Camaro SS 396, a muscle car that has since become a legend among street racers and collectors alike. On the surface, it's a high-performance big-block powerhouse, but a closer look reveals a series of bizarre choices, hidden quirks, and unexpected compromises. From subtle factory secrets to odd design decisions, this car wasn't just about raw speed. It was a study in contradictions. Some features enhanced performance, others hindered it, and a few were included for reasons that remain puzzling today. Aluminum power at a price. In 1969, Chevrolet's Camaro SS 396 wasn't just a muscle car. It was a statement of intent. The SS badge meant serious business, and the most potent version, the L78, already delivered a brutal 375 horsepower from its big block V8. But for the true street racers who measured success in tenths of a second, Chevrolet offered an even more exclusive upgrade, the L89 aluminum head option. This was no cosmetic add-on. The L89 swapped to the L78's heavy cast iron heads for lightweight aluminum versions, shaving crucial pounds off the front end. That reduction in front weight meant sharper handling, quicker launches, and better balance, advantages that could make or break a drag race. Yet, this high-tech tweak came at a staggering cost. Priced at $711, it was more than double the L78's $316 charge, and nearly a quarter of the car's entire sticker price. Even more surprising, Chevrolet didn't officially bump the horsepower rating. It stayed at 375. Buyers weren't paying for bragging rights on paper. They were paying for real-world performance. That decision filtered out casual buyers, leaving only the most dedicated gearheads to check that box. Out of all 1969 Camaros built, only 311 received the L89 option. The result was a factory-built weapon, light up front, heavy on attitude, and engineered for those who believed true power demanded sacrifice. The hidden horsepower game. To become the king of the streets, you need an unfair advantage. In 1969, Chevrolet handed one to SS 396 buyers in the form of a convenient lie, and it all revolved around insurance. By the late 60s, insurance companies were cracking down on high-horsepower cars, hitting young buyers with crippling premiums. Chevrolet's clever solution was to simply not tell the truth about their most potent engine. The poster child for this strategy was the legendary L78 396 Big Block. This was a high-compression, solid-lifter beast built for war. But on the official order sheet, Chevy rated it at a modest 375 horsepower. This number was pure fiction. It was designed to look tame enough for the insurance adjusters, and just as importantly, it kept the Camaro from officially outshining the flagship Corvette. But the real story was told on the pavement. Everyone on the street knew that 375 horsepower rating was an inside joke. Independent dyno tests confirmed what drivers could already feel. The L78 was really producing well over 400 horsepower, straight from the factory. This hidden 25-plus horsepower wasn't a rounding error. It was a deliberate, factory-installed secret weapon. It meant any L78 Camaro was pulling up to a red light with a significant, unadvertised edge, ready to dominate unsuspecting rivals. Built for the burnout. The line between a factory street car and a purpose-built race car was incredibly blurry in 1969. While most people bought cars for daily driving, the SS 396 was often ordered by buyers with one specific goal: to win. This is proven by the way these cars were equipped. We're not talking about floor mats or vinyl roofs. Serious buyers were ordering their cars with hardware intended for the drag strip. Surviving examples from that era show they were immediately outfitted with chassis-stiffening traction bars to prevent axle hop and safety-mandated driveshaft loops, just like a professional drag car. But the most telling piece of hardware was the line lock. This is pure racing technology. It's a solenoid valve that, when activated, locks only the front brakes. This allows the driver to keep the car perfectly stationary while standing on the throttle, spinning the rear tires into a massive cloud of smoke. This is essential for heating the tires to get a perfect sticky launch. A line lock has zero practical use in daily driving. Its sole function is to prepare for a drag race. The fact that these cars were being built with this hardware from day one reveals their true intent. The SS 396 wasn't just a car that happened to be fast. It was a specialized tool delivered to the street racers who knew exactly what they were doing. Too loud for the law. A huge part of being the king of the street is intimidation, and nothing is more intimidating than the sound of an uncorked big block V8. For a brief window in 1969, Chevrolet gave you that sound right from the factory. It was an option called RPO NC8, the chambered exhaust. This system was not just a set of sporty mufflers, it completely eliminated the mufflers. In their place was a radical, tuned double-wall pipe. An inner perforated pipe let the exhaust flow freely, while the outer pipe was crimped in specific spots to filter frequencies, essentially tuning the sound. The result wasn't just a powerful sound, it was a deafening, aggressive roar that maximized horsepower by minimizing back pressure. It was, quite simply, a factory-installed race exhaust. This was the sound of a car that meant business. Unfortunately, it was also completely illegal in many areas. Owners who were smart enough to tick this box found themselves being pulled over almost immediately for noise violations. The backlash from law enforcement and state regulators became so intense that GM was forced to officially cancel the option in June of 1969, cutting its availability short. This fact is incredible. Chevrolet was knowingly building and selling a car that was too loud for the law, prioritizing pure, unadulterated performance and street presence over legality. The King's crippling hop. For all its big block power, the SS 396 came from the factory with a shocking, fundamental flaw. It couldn't launch. This wasn't a minor issue, it was a crippling weakness that neutralized its horsepower advantage right at the green light. The problem was simple physics. The massive 396 engine was so heavy that it put almost 60% of the car's entire weight directly over the front axle. This left the rear end of the car, the part responsible for traction, dangerously light. When a driver tried to launch the car, all that 396 torque would instantly overwhelm the rear leaf springs. Instead of gripping and going, the entire rear axle would violently shake and slam up and down. A famous Road Test magazine review at the time described it perfectly, saying the axle would leap and hop, judder and bucks at the mere suggestion of work. The review even said this flaw dragged the mighty 396 down to the level of just another Camaro. This meant that to make the car competitive, racers had to fix this factory oversight immediately. Before even thinking about engine mods, the first step for any SS 396 owner was to bolt on a set of aftermarket traction bars to stop the hop, finally allowing the King to put its power to the pavement. The bumper that bounced. In 1969, chrome was king. Nearly every car on the road featured big, bright chrome bumpers as a staple of American design. But Chevrolet offered a stealthy, high-tech alternative for the Camaro that looked like it came from the future, the Endura bumper. This was a 1969 only option, known as RPO VE3. Instead of chrome, it was a special bumper made with a steel core covered in a thick urethane coating, which was then painted to match the exact body color of the car. This gave the front end a completely different personality. It looked sleek, integrated, and incredibly modern, replacing the traditional brightwork with a smooth, seamless appearance that really changed the car's face. But this wasn't just a styling choice, it was a functional upgrade. The Endura bumper had a secret ability. The polyurethane material was flexible and impact-resistant. Unlike a standard chrome bumper that would dent, flake, or chip from a minor bump, the Endura could literally bounce back from small dings, absorbing the impact without showing permanent damage. This offered a surprising durability advantage for a car living a hard life on the street. It was a rare option, with just over 12,000 cars getting it. And today, seeing an SS 396 with a factory-painted Endura bumper is a sign that you're looking at a very special and forward-thinking machine. The legendary Rock Crusher. All the horsepower in the world is useless if your transmission shatters on the launch. The 396 big block produced so much instant brutal torque that it would grenade lesser gearboxes. This is where the SS 396's most famous weapon comes in, the Muncie M22 4-speed. This heavy-duty transmission wasn't just an option, it was a necessity for survival on the street, and it earned a legendary nickname, the Rock Crusher. This wasn't a clever marketing term invented by Chevrolet. It was a name given by the racers themselves, and it was based entirely on the unique sound it made. Your average car's transmission uses helical gears, gears with angled teeth, which run smoothly and quietly. The M22 threw comfort out the window in favor of pure strength. It used massive straight-cut gears, similar to what you'd find in a dedicated race car. This design was far stronger and could handle the shock of high RPM clutch dumps without flinching. The trade-off was a very distinct, loud, high-pitched whining noise on acceleration and deceleration. This Rock Crusher whine was unmistakable. If you heard that sound pull up next to you at a stoplight, you knew you weren't lined up against just any Camaro. You were facing a purpose-built brawler. No comfort for the king. A key part of the SS 396's legend was its absolute focus on performance, and Chevrolet enforced this by denying buyers one of the most popular options: air conditioning. By 1969, you could order AC on almost any V8 Camaro, including the SS 350 and even the milder hydraulic lifter 396 engines. But a non-negotiable rule came down from the engineering department. If a buyer stepped up to the truly high-performance mechanical lifter engines, like the 375 horsepower L78 396, air conditioning was explicitly forbidden. The factory's order forms would literally not allow the two options to be combined. This wasn't an oversight or a simple matter of space under the hood. It was a deliberate decision to preserve the car's mission. The L78 was a high-compression solid lifter engine, built for high RPM and abuse. An AC compressor creates a parasitic drag that steals horsepower. Even worse, the AC condenser unit sits in front of the radiator, dumping massive heat into the cooling system, something a big block race engine cannot afford. This factory ban was a brilliant filter. It forced buyers to make a choice. Did they want a comfortable cruiser, or did they want the fastest car? The true street kings didn't mind sweating. The black panel of power. On the street, identifying your competition in a split second was the key to survival. Chevrolet knew this, so they gave the 1969 SS 396 a subtle, visual password that separated it from its weaker siblings. If you ordered a Super Sport with the standard 350 small block, the panel located between the taillights was simply painted to match the rest of the car's body. It was a clean, everyday look. But if you had the money and the nerve to order the big block 396, the factory mandated that this panel be blacked out in a distinct satin finish. This small change had a massive impact. Visually, it gave the car a lower, wider, and more sinister appearance from the rear, the exact view most rivals would be seeing. But its real purpose was communication. It was a dead giveaway to everyone on the street, a factory-installed signal that this wasn't just any Camaro. This was the big block, high-torque model, the real threat. There were only two exceptions to this rule. If the entire car was ordered in tuxedo black, the panel was just painted gloss black to match, and the white Indy Pace car replicas kept their all-white rears, even with 396S. For every other car, that satin black panel was an unmistakable badge of honor, letting everyone at the stoplight know that the king had arrived. Feeding the 396 beast. The heart of the SS 396 L78 wasn't just its big block displacement, it was the precise way it breathed. Feeding 396 cubic inches of solid lifter power required more than a standard carburetor, and Chevrolet delivered with a high-performance Holley vacuum secondary 4,154 barrel, rated conservatively between 780 and 800 cubic feet per minute. This carburetor ensured the engine received a steady, massive supply of air and fuel. Mounted on a dual-plane high-rise intake manifold, it optimized airflow to match the big port heads and high compression design of the L78. What makes this detail striking is the consistency across Chevrolet's top-tier engines. The same carburetor platform was used on the Z28 302/390ths GP and even the Co-PO 427/425ths GP. demonstrating a unified engineering strategy. While each engine had specific calibration, the choice of the Holley 4150 as a foundation shows Chevrolet's focus on reliability, performance, and race-ready precision. For the SS 396 L78, the Holley carb was identified as GM 3959164, code GE, ensuring the right flow characteristics and fuel mixture for maximum torque and horsepower delivery. This carefully selected high-flow carburetor transformed the 396 into a responsive, high-revving powerhouse, capable of consistent performance on both street and strip. It reinforced the idea that every top-tier Camaro was meticulously engineered, with components that worked in concert rather than relying on generic parts. The factory's hidden grip. We've established that the SS 396's big block torque created a massive problem with wheel hop. While many new owners had to immediately run out and buy aftermarket traction bars, Chevrolet actually had a discrete factory-level solution to separate their true performance models from the standard cars. If you looked underneath a base model Camaro, you'd find a simple single-leaf rear spring. This setup was perfectly fine for a basic V8, but it was hopelessly outmatched by the 396. The second that massive torque hit, it would twist that single leaf like a pretzel, causing the rear axle to hop violently and lose all traction. But when you ordered the high-performance SS 396, the car was built on the assembly line with a completely different suspension. It came standard with heavy-duty multi-leaf rear springs. This stack of thinner leaves was dramatically more rigid and specifically designed to resist the twisting forces of axle wrap. This upgrade, often paired with another factory trick, staggered rear shock absorbers, worked together to keep the rear axle from jumping around and force the tire to stay planted on the pavement. This wasn't an aftermarket fix. It was a fundamental chassis upgrade, a secret weapon built right in, ensuring the King's power actually made it to the street. The 4-bolt advantage. At the core of the SS 396 L78's legendary durability was an often overlooked engineering feature, the true 4-bolt main engine block. Unlike the standard 2-bolt main configuration used on milder 396 engines, the 4-bolt mains added 2 extra bolts per cap, dramatically reinforcing the crankshaft's support. These additional fasteners ensured that the lower end of the engine could withstand the enormous forces generated by the L78's solid lifter cam, high compression, and high RPM operation. This structural upgrade wasn't cosmetic or optional. It was standard on the L78/375 HP engine, setting it apart from the 325 GPL35 or 350 GPL34 variants. The 4-bolt main design provided exceptional rigidity, reducing flex and minimizing the risk of crankshaft movement under extreme stress. This was particularly important for drag racing or spirited street use, where consistent engine integrity was critical. By incorporating this enhancement, Chevrolet ensured that the L78 was more than just a 396 with a hotter cam. It was a purpose-built powerhouse, engineered to survive abuse that would damage a lesser block. For owners, this meant reliability paired with performance. The reinforced block allowed drivers to exploit the big block's torque and horsepower without fear of catastrophic failure. The 4-bolt main block became a hallmark of the top-tier SS 396, representing Chevrolet's commitment to engineering a production muscle car capable of serious competition. It transformed the L78 into a street-ready engine built to endure the demands of high-performance driving. The vanishing SS wheel. When you imagine a 1969 SS 396, you almost certainly picture it on a set of familiar 5-slot rally wheels. They were iconic and by far the most common choice. But for a very brief, almost forgotten window, Chevrolet offered a much more aggressive and exclusive alternative. It was RPO N66, a special wheel intended to be the signature look for the Supersport. It featured a bold 5-spoke Magnum 500 style pattern with deep recessed coves painted black. This wheel gave the car a completely different, much more track-focused personality, a clear visual upgrade over the standard offerings. These wheels are practically a myth today, and the reason is their incredibly short lifespan. This wasn't an option that faded away at the end of the year. It was abruptly canceled by GM on January 8, 1969, just a few months into the production run. The reasons are a bit hazy, perhaps supply issues, or maybe a last-minute change of heart. But the result is extreme rarity. In total, only 314 Camaros out of more than 243,000 were ever equipped with these N66 wheels from the factory. That tiny number makes it one of the most obscure factory options of the entire model year. For a street racer, this was the ultimate visual statement. It was a factory-installed part that 99.9% of other Camaros, even other SS 396S, simply could not get, making an already intimidating car a true unicorn on the boulevard. The awkwardly placed gauges. When you're pushing a high-strung solid lifter L78-396 to its absolute redline, you must keep an eye on its vital signs. Oil pressure and coolant temperature aren't just suggestions. They're the only things telling you that your expensive engine isn't about to self-destruct. Chevrolet knew this, so they offered an optional gauge package, RPO U17, which included the critical oil, temp, and ammeter gauges. This was a massive upgrade from the standard idiot lights. But the execution of this feature was a serious problem for any real driver. Instead of putting these vital gauges in the main instrument cluster where you could see them, Chevrolet's designers placed them low in the center console, down by the shifter. This decision was a triumph of interior styling over high-performance function. For a street racer in the middle of a quarter-mile run, this layout was dangerously impractical. It forced the driver to take their eyes completely off the road and, just as importantly, off the tachometer, to glance down at the console. This ergonomic flaw was so significant that many dedicated racers simply installed their own set of aftermarket gauges on the steering column or dash, just so they could monitor their big block's health without risking a crash. The overlooked power hood. One of the most defining features of the 1969 SS 396 was its aggressive hood. The standard version featured two chrome-simulated stacks, often called the ice cube tray hood. They looked incredibly mean, but they were an illusion, purely for style and completely non-functional. For the street racers who cared more about trap speeds than parking lot looks, there was a separate, crucial option. RPO ZL2, the Super Scoop. This was a complete functional cold air induction system, and its design was pure race-bred genius. Instead of a forward-facing scoop, the ZL2 used a wide opening at the back of the hood, sealed against the base of the windshield. This cowl area is a natural high-pressure zone when the car is at speed, literally force-feeding cool, dense, outside air directly into the big block's air cleaner. More cold air means a more powerful combustion, creating a very real horsepower advantage. Chevrolet's own ad team called it Camaro's new Super Scoop, boasting, "We really put our foot into it this time." They proved they were serious by making this hood standard equipment on the ultra-rare Co-PO drag cars and the Indy Pace cars. Yet, for the SS 396, it remained an option. This created a clear divide on the street, those with the stylish but fake ice tray hood, and the serious racers who knew to order the ZL2, securing a factory-engineered edge over everyone else. The mandated ignition switch. We think of the 1969 Camaro as this raw, untamed beast, a machine built by engineers who only cared about quarter-mile times and stoplight-to-stoplight dominance. But our final fact shows that even the king of the street had to bow to new rules, and this change had nothing to do with horsepower. If you sat in a 1967 or 68 Camaro, you'd find the ignition switch mounted directly on the dashboard, a classic, simple setup. When you climb into a 1969 model, however, you'll find the keyhole is gone from the dash. It was relocated to the steering column. This wasn't a styling choice by GM or a performance upgrade from the SS team. It was a direct result of new federal motor vehicle safety standards. The government mandated this change for all 1969 models, and it had a huge impact on the car's interior. This new location introduced a feature we now all take for granted, the steering column lock. When the driver removed the key, a mechanism would physically lock the steering wheel, making the car much harder to steal. This also served a safety purpose, securing the column in a crash. It's a fascinating detail because it represents a major turning point. The 69 SS 396 was one of the last truly wild, high-compression muscle cars, but it was also one of the first to be directly and visibly shaped by modern safety and anti-theft regulations. The VIN-stamped transmission. In the world of 1969 Camaro SS 396 collecting and restoration, verifying a car's original high-performance engine can be a complex task. Chevrolet, however, left a hidden clue for the most dedicated collectors. The Muncie M22 heavy-duty 4-speed transmission, also known as the Rock Crusher, was required for cars equipped with the potent 375 horsepower L78 solid lifter big block. What makes this transmission remarkable is that the factory stamped the car's unique vehicle identification number, VIN, directly onto the M22 case. This seemingly small detail became a critical tool for confirming authenticity decades later. By pairing the VIN on the transmission with the X66 body code, which indicated a big block-based Camaro, collectors could definitively establish that a car was factory equipped with the L78 engine, even if all original paperwork had been lost. The M22 was never installed on milder hydraulic lifter 396 engines, nor on small block Z/28S, making it a precise marker of the top-tier SS 396. This hidden stamping practice transforms the transmission into a forensic tool, allowing restorers to validate a car's pedigree. It elevates an ordinary restoration project into a verified high-performance L78 SS 396. For enthusiasts, the VIN-stamped M22 is more than a gearbox. It is a seal of authenticity, a tangible connection to the car's original factory intent, and a crucial factor in determining the value and collectability of one of Chevrolet's most iconic muscle cars. The King's domestic life. We have this image of every SS 396 as a dedicated pavement-pounding warrior, a car that lived a hard life from one red light to the next. But the history of these cars is often stranger than the legend. A recently discovered 1969 RS SS 396, pulled from a garage where it sat untouched since 1983, tells a very different and very domestic story. This wasn't a weekend toy. Its second owners bought it, used in 1972 from, of all places, a Volkswagen dealership. The surviving paperwork shows they traded in a 1960 Buick for the oddly specific sum of $100.04. Once they got it home, this big block high-performance machine was immediately handed over to the wife to be used as her daily driver. This wasn't a car that was babied or taken to the track. It was a workhorse, the most incredible part of its history. This RS SS 396 was the family's ski trip vehicle. The owners confirmed it made annual trips to Mammoth Mountain, with 5 people shoehorned inside, along with all their gear. This image is fantastic. A high-compression muscle car designed to dominate the street, dutifully hauling a family up a mountain. It just proves that, for some, the king of the street was also the king of the carpool. The insurance man's rating. We've already talked about the L78's 375 horsepower lie, but the reason for that lie is one of the main factors that made the SS 396 a street racing king. It wasn't just about tricking competitors, it was a deliberate strategy to fight the insurance companies. By the late 60s, the insurance industry was actively trying to kill the muscle car boom. They were slapping astronomical, unaffordable premiums on any car with a high horsepower rating, effectively pricing the entire youth market out of existence. Chevrolet's solution was a corporate-level deception. This strategy of horsepower gaming had already begun. Chevy famously got cold feet with their 427 big block, which they planned to rate at a true 450 horsepower. Fearing the insurance backlash, they preemptively dropped the official number to 425. This set the stage for the 1969 L78. Its official 375 horsepower figure wasn't for engineers or racers. It was a fake number designed specifically for the insurance paperwork. The real-world 400-plus horsepower was the number that mattered on the street. This made the SS 396 the perfect weapon, a car that looked manageable on paper, but was a monster in reality, allowing racers to get insured without revealing their true advantage. The King's luxurious grip. While the SS 396 was a purpose-built street warrior, its identity was more complex than just a stripped-down racer. Buyers had the ability to blend that raw performance with some surprisingly high-end, almost luxurious touches. The perfect example of this split personality was the optional RPO N34, the rosewood steering wheel. This wasn't a cheap, plastic-looking accessory. It was a distinctive, simulated wood grain wheel that looked and felt incredibly upscale. It added a touch of European-inspired elegance to a cockpit that was otherwise all-American muscle. This steering wheel created a fascinating contradiction. A buyer could be ordering the L78 big block, the Rock Crusher 4-speed, and a Posy Traction rear axle, all pure, hardcore racing hardware. And then, on the same order form, check the box for this beautiful, elegant steering wheel. This fact shows that the SS 396 wasn't always a bare-bones brawler. It could be configured as the total package, a car that had the brutal power to rule the street, but also had the comfort, power steering, and sophisticated style to make it a genuinely premium machine. It was a true iron fist in a velvet glove. The 1969 Camaro SS 396 was more than a muscle car. It was a carefully engineered contradiction, blending raw, street-ready power with unexpected quirks and hidden secrets. From the lightweight L89 aluminum heads that shaved pounds off the front end, to the deceptively rated L78 engine hiding well over 400 horsepower from insurers, Chevrolet created a car that dominated on the street while bending conventional expectations. Add in the VIN-stamped Muncie M22 Rock Crusher transmission, the factory line lock for drag racing, and the bizarre history of one SS 396 serving as a family ski car, and the Camaro's story becomes as unpredictable as it is legendary. Each of these details reveals how innovation, regulation, and human ingenuity combine to make the SS 396 the king of the streets, a car both feared on the drag strip and admired by collectors decades later. Its legacy is defined as much by its eccentricities as by its power.